In 2016, a new TV show hit the digital airwaves and needed a podcast dedicated to chronicling its adventures. An elite team has been assembled for this task. Unfortunately, the world's listeners have not heard of this wonder twin duo. And although they may not be known now, in the future they will be referred to as tomorrow's legends.
Hey Harley, you ready to get started today?
Hey Flash. Hi Flash. Hi Flash. Hello Flash. Hey Flash. Hi Flash. Hey Flash.
Hi Flash. Hi Flash.
Harley? Who are all your friends that, look like you?
What? Who? These guys? I don't know. They just sort of showed up, but I can get them to do anything.
Oh man, that's trouble. And I'm surrounded.
And now, here are your hosts, the fleet-footed Flash and his hammer-swinging partner, Harley Quinn.
Does that mean this show is going to go on for 5 hours because you're going to have 100 different opinions?
Let's hope not.
Welcome, Legendaires, to Tomorrow's Legends. We're covering Season 3, Episode 16, Ava. You know what? I think it was pretty fun.
Yeah, I think it was pretty fun too. I really enjoyed the episode. So much so that I gave it 9.5 safe spaces.
Oh, diving right in. Okay.
I am. Oh, was I not supposed to do that?
No, hey, when I'm surrounded, you can do whatever you want. I'm not really going to argue tonight. But that's a high rating for you. Holy cow.
I know. So I really enjoyed this episode, and I didn't enjoy it quite as much as last week, but I kind of had a little bit of a struggle because I didn't really have a nitpick this week. But I didn't, I still thought that last week's episode was better. So I kind of just bumped it down to a 9.5.
Okay.
Yeah, I know.
That's
I don't know.
Enough.
Yeah.
Well, what did you like about it, though? 9.5 is still pretty darn good. So what? There must have been some stuff in here you were just loving.
I pretty much loved everything.
Okay.
I am really enjoying where this season's going. We're getting some new mysteries, like with Ava, and I'm really curious about what is going on with her official backstory or future story, as the case may be.
Right.
And I'm also really curious where Rip has just all of a sudden disappeared to after deleting a personal file. He's been absent from the last 2 episodes.
True.
So now that they've reintroduced him, I'm curious as to exactly where he is, since the team is fighting Mallus, and that was supposed to be his little pet project. But anyway, so we're kind of trying to clear up a bunch of questions that we've been asking all season, which was really awesome. I mean, the whole situation with Amaya and Nate, that's kind of been put to rest. Kuasa has also been put to rest, no pun intended.
Put to rest is kind of a peaceful way of saying it, yeah.
I guess, yeah. And I loved Jess McCallan and Katie Lotz, and especially loved the scenes with them together. I thought they knocked it out of the park again this week.
They were fun.
They were. And then you had some Nick Zano, Neil McDonough. Oh, those torture scenes were comedy gold. Come on, so good.
Oh, some good stuff, yeah. And we will definitely talk about pretty much every point you brought up there, so I was trying not to say too much because I think we got some things to say.
Yeah, I know. Those. I wanted to keep it kind of high level. But what about you? What was your rating and quick review?
I'm giving this one an 8 Attack of the Clones.
Okay.
And I mean, we kind of chatted briefly about it behind the scenes, but I'm still kind of scratching my chin and scratching my head. I'm unsure of how I feel about this one. I mean, it was good, but I'm thinking it was a bit of a letdown. I mean, we had so many great theories about Ava, somehow being connected to Booster Gold and Rip. And I was so excited about those possibilities. And then to just turn out her being a clone, it seems kind of very uninspired writing and not very impactful to the show, to the story, or to our characters. It was a lot of build up with kind of a fizzle of a reveal. So I'm feeling a little sour, or I ended up feeling a little sour towards the rest of the episode after that. I was like, But there were some great moments, like you mentioned with Damien and Nate. That was some priceless stuff there. I really like the scenes with Zari and Mick, and then that shocking end to Kuasa that I wasn't expecting.
Yes.
But then I also found, and this is funny because someone posted on our Facebook page a big article about Amaya and why she's one of the worst legends on the show, and it's so funny because I actually found her kind of annoying this episode. So we're gonna have to see what we dig up during our talk and see if we can kind of, find our way through all of that stuff.
Yeah, well, we do definitely have a lot to talk about. I also kind of found myself scratching my head at the end with Amaya. Not really in a bad way, but just like in a what are you doing kind of way. So.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get into it.
We'll get into it. But before we do, we haven't had this for a little while. We've got some pre-show feedback. And to state it with the words some is kind of an understatement. We got a lot of pre-show feedbacks, and we're not going to go through all of it for sure. We just wanted to make sure we pay some attention to it because we haven't heard from our friend Stormhawk in a while. He's been busy with life and doing a lot of catching up. I think he just went on a huge binge watching I don't know how many episodes of Legends, plus listening to all of our shows. And he sent us feedback for every single episode in some emails. So we just wanted to highlight a few of the things that he had to say. So what did he have for us, Harley?
All right. Well, the first point that I thought was kind of cool is that he wanted to see a crossover where all of the Earths are merged into one, and that way we could kind of see all of our heroes together. So like, Supergirl and Arrow and all the big ones with all the legends, and then maybe some of the Flash people from Earth 2. There's just a lot that potential that could be there if we kind of combined all of our Earths.
Yeah, he's thinking kind of like an Avengers idea, where all the side characters and everything that has kind of popped in for 1 or 2 episodes, just bringing everybody together which is kind of the Crisis on, what was that? I can't remember the comic book story, the Crisis storyline anyway, which was about that. I think it was
Crisis on Infinite Earths.
On Infinite Earths, yeah, it was about an alien called the Monitor, I think. That was basically collapsing all of the parallel universes into one. And that's, that was basically DC cleaning up the mess because they had made way too much and they couldn't control all the story angles and everything that was out there. So they're basically cleaning it up and combining everything down to just one. So that's what it makes me think of when he comes up with those ideas. But
yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, and I'm just going to let you read the second point here. I want nothing to do with the second point.
I simply included this as a highlight because I found it highly amusing. He liked the Bebo episode. He gave it a high rating too. It was a 9 out of 10 false blue idols. So I just thought I thought it was worth mentioning just because you so hated that episode. Well, so sorry, but I had to mention it.
Yeah, hey, and it's all everyone's got their parts of shows that they like and episodes that they dislike. And it's just funny because that one, I mean, some people liked it. And there was a lot more people that hated it like I did, but I don't think there was anyone that absolutely loved it as a standout episode. So that's what I found was kind of interesting about his high rating.
Yeah, he gave it a high rating, but he didn't say that it was like his favorite ever, but of the back half of the season, this was one of the higher rated ones for him, which was interesting. Another comment he had was, I think this was a feeling we all kind of shared, but that Jack's leaving was pretty expected, and after Dr. Stein died, so
right.
He was expecting that. And then he also really enjoyed the time loop episode. That's been a highlight for him in this back half of the season because and the reveal of the death totem, because what he's not enjoying is pretty much anything to do with the Darhks. So the last few episodes for him, I think were usually like around a 7 or 7.5. So he was rating them below Bebo because of the focus on the Darhks and Mallus, which he's not caring for.
See, that must just irk you because you love the Darhks. So
it's not. I mean, it doesn't irk me. Everybody's got their own feelings about it. I happen to love the goofy and all of that, but I don't think he's into all that, which is fine.
That's just interesting. He's very up and down about a lot of it, so it's just interesting to see his point of view. But we still thank you for all of the feedback. I think if we haven't already, I think Harley was going to try to respond to you a little bit personally. I will as well when we have some time, because we really appreciate all the time you put into talking to us behind the scenes. So thanks for that.
Yeah.
And good to have you back on board too.
I know, it was great to hear from you. And then actually, I just wanted to give a shout out to one of our newer Facebook members, Darian Mitchell. He's been posting a ton on our group, and he's had some pretty interesting and good points. So I kind of wanted to give him a little shout out. I've seen his name a lot recently.
Well, fair enough. We totally love everybody being involved and just spending time with us and, keeping our page active. We totally appreciate that. So thanks.
Yeah.
Moving right along, we don't have a lot of news, but something good came out this week that I will mention here, that it looks like we are good to go for a season 4 renewal. So that's exciting. As it was announced, the showrunners want to greenlight all of the DC shows for renewal. So that's good news.
Oh, that is good news. I'm glad they at least put something, even if it's not a formal renewal, more positive out there, because a lot of people were kind of feeling a little uneasy about the show. I'm not sure why. It's been so good.
Well, in the same article, they were stating that Legends has suffered quite a drop in the ratings because of the move to Monday nights. So,
really?
Yeah, I don't know what that means, if they're going to switch nights again come September. I have no idea, but we have dropped in the ratings, and so has Arrow as well with its move to Thursday nights. So, yeah, which I mean, it kind of makes sense that when a network continually moves the show around, it's hard for viewers to keep up. People get into routines, and even though there's a lot more of us that are streaming and downloading and watching on PVR at our own convenient times, there's still a lot of people that just have cable and want to sit down at 7:00 time slot on a specific day to watch their show. And it's those viewers that you lose when you keep switching it around. So these networks got to wisen up and quit messing around. When something works and you're getting a lot of viewers, then just leave it there. I was going to say, don't bring in another show and bump one out that's working just to try a new one. Don't do that. Put the new show in a time slot that's available for you. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, well, I think Mondays and Thursdays just tend to be more competitive just based on what other shows air on other networks. So I'm wondering if they tried to move them as stronger shows to these tougher nights, and it's just not working out because people are going to the NBCs or ABCs or Fox. I think Gotham is on Monday night. The Blacklist is on Thursday night. I mean, there's a lot of big shows on Mondays and Thursdays in this time slot. So,
yeah. Well, CW will have to figure it out because they're going to 6 days a week or whatever that was for superhero shows. So,
yep, they sure will.
They're going to have to figure stuff out. But that's enough of that. Let's get into our talking points.
All right. Well, I think we should start with the main storyline and kind of go through that, which I'm calling Ava. And then I have the other two storylines kind of bringing up the end and then the closing scenes. So it definitely followed distinct story points, so it felt easier to pull them out and talk about them together. So we start with Sarah trying to take a leave of absence, which I thought was interesting, before she's interrupted by Gary looking for Ava, which was one of the most amusing scenes I've ever seen because he was covering his eyes as he's walking through the middle of the ship, not even into her quarters because he didn't want to walk in on them. It was highly amusing to me.
Which is kind of funny because he also is, which I was surprised. I think he, as much as last week we were talking about that he enjoyed the kiss from Constantine, I think he has this huge crush on Ava as well.
Yeah, I was definitely getting that vibe this episode.
Yeah, so I found that kind of funny. But yeah, that was a funny scene watching him walk into the wall.
It was very
Yeah.
funny. Well, because he tells us that I guess she's been absent from work for a few days, which is very unusual of her. And she claims she went to see her parents, which I think I had a little bit of a typo here, which we know is a lie, straight up.
Yeah, I mean, she was lying at that point because she didn't know that Sara, Ray, and Gary were just at her parents' place in Fresno. So, it wasn't a very good cover-up, although they didn't call her on it right away, which I was a little surprised.
Yeah, that is interesting. I mean, she fesses up later that she went to see her ex, but...
Yeah. Which, there's some story to that, I would say. What do you mean your ex in Vegas? What?
Yeah, I would like more about that story, please. Thanks.
And why would you divulge that anyway? She felt guilty, obviously, but it's kind of funny.
Yeah, well, I think that was the whole thing, is she was feeling guilty. She's like, I know we're not together, but oh my gosh, you hate me. You guys hate me. And then that was, she turns around and sees herself, which is kind of weird.
Yeah.
But that's jumping like way ahead. I kind of already mentioned my point of, I just want to know where Rip is. It's kind of bothering me that he's just absent.
Well, where indeed? Because the last time we saw him, he's talking to Gideon. Oh, Gideon, erase all the files on Ava. I don't want Sara to know her truth. And that's what I mean. Like, they left us hanging on that, which builds it up to like, wow, okay, there's this awesome story about Ava. And, and we all started, hypothesizing, is she Booster Gold? What's going on? And then it just turns out that she's a clone. And it really, the build up with Rip being so secretive and erasing these files, like, just a clone. I don't know. That doesn't live up to the mystery that they gave us.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Did you feel a bit let down by it? I mean, what was your reaction? Did you, oh my God, it's a clone? Or were you like, clone? Really? That's it?
I don't know. I'm actually fascinated by it. I wasn't let down because I've known the title of this episode for weeks. And I was more interested in the fact that she wasn't a robot.
Well, see, even that's misleading. Ava is misleading because that means she's a robot. But she's
intentionally.
Not, and we'll get to that in a moment.
No, yeah. I definitely believe they did that intentionally.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so it wasn't really a letdown because I was applauding the writers for their misdirection, because they know many people stalk the episode titles and look at all the pictures, and it was kind of well done. It was very crafty with the way that they did the promotions. I was actually suitably impressed. So I was more intrigued than let down. I was like, a clone. Oh, this has many more interesting possibilities than robots.
I guess, but I don't know if they're even going any farther with it, because they left that area. She's going to be herself. She says, I don't want to be part of this. And Sarah's like, you are who you are, and I like you. And that's why, they might not even do any more with it.
Yeah, no, they may not. Well, did you notice that in all of their traveling, whenever they went to the Time Bureau, it doesn't have a time stamp?
I totally noticed that. You put it in here. It was a big point in my notes, because I was going to bring it up too. And I think it totally plays into my theory that the Bureau is out of time. It may look like it's standing there, but I think, depending on all the different little theories that we came up with, but on the inside, it's definitely not part of time. As I said before, I think something like the Oculus was. So I'm assuming, or what I'm guessing at, is that the building is physically there in whatever year that is, and it's always there. But once you go inside, I mean, obviously there's security doors and all this stuff that go through it. I'm just thinking there's some type of time wall of some kind, something that keeps them out of time, because obviously they're not putting a timestamp on it to tell us what year we're in there on. I don't know. I've spun all my crazy theories about it before, but to me that proves the point that it's not in the normal time. It's outside of time.
It's somehow protected. Yeah, I think that was probably a bit of a nod to that. So that's why I made sure to write it down, because it kind of, I wouldn't say 100% confirms your theory, but it's a pretty good indication that you're on the right track there.
Yeah, and it's obvious too. I mean, even people on the Facebook page all noticed that too. So,
Yep. Okay. So I want to talk about the scenes where they get to meet her parents real quick, just because it had such a Stepford Wives kind of vibe to it. So much so that I decided to do some Wikipedia research and post some links on our blog post.
Right. Good stuff.
Yeah. So as they sat down, I mean, we all knew it, but before Sarah even said it, it's just this whole thing was too good to be true. I mean, everything was very suspiciously narrated by the parents, and it just seemed like they were playing a part even before we knew they were just playing a part.
Oh, it was so phony. Like, there's no way Ava would come from that kind of phony, Leave It to Beaver, perfect neighborhood and family. It was, yeah, there was something off about it. But Sarah was suspicious immediately when they answered the door. You could even see the look on her face. She wasn't buying it right away. And that just shows like she is sharp, because both Gary and Ray were completely buying into it.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, you know, she's naturally suspicious.
Yeah. But I mean, Gary's like, oh, I can see where she gets her perfect bone structure from. And like, he was totally hook, line, and sinker. So.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but that's Gary for you.
That's true. But then did you also notice that the parents, in trying to sell their story, after they were found out, they had stated that it was 4 years ago they got hired to play the part of her parents, which makes me think, okay, so that means Rip brought Ava back 4 years ago. Like, he went into the future, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this, but he brought her to this place to act as her home that she was raised in only 4 years ago.
Yeah, that's what I was getting out of that too. Well, the Time Bureau has only been in existence for 5 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is what we learned. So
yeah,
I thought that was very interesting as well. And I would like more on that. I don't know if we're going to get it or not, but
yeah, I'm not sure. Well, we'll have to see, because the episode didn't really end with her wanting to pursue it or anything. It didn't seem like, her and Sarah were just kind of having a bit of a talk about it, and
I'm wondering if maybe we'll get a little scene with her confronting Rip.
Yeah, that might be where it comes back for sure. If they ever catch up to Rip again, I bet you she'll definitely confront Rip about it.
Yeah.
So cool.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's like we were kind of saying though, there was just so much misdirection with the robots.
Mm-hmm.
I liked that. I mean, because again, like the Stepford Wives feel was very, robotic, because in the Stepford Wives, spoiler alert for a 50-year-old movie or 40-year-old movie or however old it is.
Well, and they did a remake with Nicole Kidman, I believe, in the 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was early 2000s, but yeah, they did do a remake.
Mm-hmm.
The remake was okay. The original one's better.
I did not see that one.
Oh, the original. I've seen a movie that you haven't. Mark this down. This is a first.
Yeah, but I do know about it. I know a few details. So, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you've seen a version of it, you've pretty much seen the version of it. Some of the details are a little different, but I mean, the point of the story is they all turn out to be robots, and they're submissive and the perfect wife, quote unquote.
Yeah, which is funny, because this actually had nothing to do with robots, and again, we will get to that more in a sec. But
yep, exactly. Yeah. Well, then let's move on here. So Sarah wants to know what's happening, and she swipes Ava's time courier, which I thought was pretty cool. I didn't know they could put it on a little plate thing and have it say, "Hey, this is everywhere she's been."
Yeah, well, it's kind of, I mean, I've seen that technology in other TV shows, like I think Hawaii Five-0 I watch, and they have this gigantic tabletop laptop computer, and anytime someone brings in a USB stick, they just drop the USB stick on the table and it interacts with it. I'm guessing via Wi-Fi or whatever, but that technology is around. It's kind of like how you can charge your cell phones now just by placing them on a pad. You don't even have to plug them in anymore. So that kind of technology is there. So I thought this was just a cool, more futuristic design of it. But I also liked how quick Sarah pickpocketed her, because it was fast.
It was really fast.
Like, I didn't even notice.
I know, like kind of a blink and you might miss it kind of deal. Because
Mhm.
even for I kind of paused for a second and I was like, whoa, wait. Oh, she just swiped that off her wrist. I was like, how did she get that?
Yeah.
But the whole thing that they end up learning is that her first mission was Vancouver 2213, which I guess isn't technically a mission.
No, see that? Yeah, that I found kind of funny. I think that, I mean, they call it a mission, and that's probably the way it's been recorded or logged into the system, but
Yeah.
it really wasn't a mission. That's just where we eventually find out, as we'll get into it, that Rip went and got her from. I mean, that's the year that the clones were released. So that was where her life began. That's where she comes from, at 2213.
Yeah.
But I laughed that it was Vancouver because that's where these TV shows are filmed, so it made it very easy for them to just wander around and film on location without having to do anything. So definitely some budget saving there.
Definitely. I thought that was hysterical, and I love that they did that.
But then, since you said like Vancouver 2213, did you notice the other dates on the screen? Because I paused it to see what else was floating around. Did you do that?
I did not. No, I ended up watching it pretty late, so I didn't do too much pausing. But what did you find?
Okay, well, in a couple of the dates that were floating around, one that stood out big and bold said open field 5145. So that means she went way into the future on one of her missions, like 5145.
That's very, very, very future.
Yeah, that's thousands of years.
What in the world could you possibly be doing there?
I have no idea. I mean, not in Flash, not in Legends have we seen a future date that far ahead.
Mm-mm.
I mean, even in our first season of Legends, it wasn't that far ahead. It was like 2600 or 2160 or 2260. I can't remember. It was not even close.
Well, I looked it up because I'm not going to lie. 2213, I did some sleuthing to see if that was when Rip Hunter was from. Turns out it's not.
Okay.
He's all of the dates throughout season 1, the furthest in the future they ever got was 21 something. I think it was like 2166 or something like that.
Yeah.
Something close to that. And yeah, so this is 100 years after that, which I think is even way, way after Eobard Thawne's time, because isn't Thawne from 2100s?
No, Thawne's like from 2600 or something.
He's
like
from
that.
2600s.
Yeah, I think he's the 24th or 25th century.
Oh, okay.
I'm not exact on that, but yeah, he's from quite a ways out.
Okay. So, anyway.
But still.
The
5145 is a crazy date, and I don't know if that actually has any significance or anything, but she went pretty far in the future. I can only imagine what mission they would have had for her that far out.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. There had to be some sort of anachronism, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah, crazy. But anyway, so the next thing that I found surprising was that they just decided to go hijack the mothership. I mean, Gary just throws it. Let's take the mothership and go on mothership. What? Where does that come from? What does that mean, a mothership?
I don't know, but I thought it was very, very funny. And I just kind of enjoyed envisioning just like one time ship that is the ship of all ships. I don't know. I found it very amusing that there is a quote unquote mothership.
Maybe it can hold the entire time bureau, like a whole squadron or something. I don't know. But why do they even need a time ship when they just have their watches that can open little portal doors wherever they want? Because
they can't go to 2213. It's out of bounds. It's blocked. And neither can the Waverider. They say it in the show.
Okay. But even I'm even still the general idea of even having a ship when they don't need it for all the other time traveling, right?
Yeah, I don't know. Safeguard maybe.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's got weapons on it and stuff too. Yeah, I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? But anyway.
I thought it was funny.
Mm-hmm. And the ship looked really cool too. It was a real advanced version of the Waverider, I guess. I don't know. It looked pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it was definitely cool. And it had some cool music to go with that scene as well. But speaking of the mothership, they land in 2213 and quickly learn that Ava is a clone.
Bum, bum, bum.
So here's the reveal, and Ray definitely, because I was specifically listening for it, he definitely makes a point that Ava is not a robot. She is a clone, and that she is an anachronism, and she's been stranded 200 years in the past, presumably because Rip took her.
Yeah, see, now, when he said that, I took it more that he was kind of guessing that she's an anachronism. I don't know if he was flat out stating that as a knowledge. I think because it was her first mission or where she came from, it's actually the time she came into being, and this was what I was waiting to get to. I think Rip went there to get a copy of her to bring back when he had the Time Bureau up and running, because who else to train to rise up in the ranks and eventually run it than, which we'll get to this point as well, than the perfect human clone. So I don't think she's an anachronism. I agree she's out of her time period because she's from the future. But I think Rip just grabbed one of the clones and brought it back to his time to help run the Time Bureau, because it's a perfect employee basically. So I don't see it as an anachronism, because an anachronism is when you change something in the past, right? And it creates a new.
I think the anachronisms just literally are meaning time displaced at this point, which is kind of how I took it.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because we've seen like the Roman Caesar get time displaced, and so that's an anachronism. Yeah, I guess. So, I don't know. Maybe that changed my thoughts a little bit. I you know what, I don't.
I still think it's a really good theory, though.
Yeah,
it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. But,
I mean, I think it has a lot of validity. Anachronism or not, however we term her, I mean, it doesn't really matter. Well, like the whole thing of what he was trying to do, I think that's pretty interesting.
But I think the difference is an anachronism is something that vanishes from its time period and appears in a different time period, whereas Ava was physically brought back in time.
That's true. So maybe they were just saying at first they thought she was an anachronism. But then when you get there, I mean, because Ray was swiping through the tablet, not when he was saying she was an anachronism, but just when he was saying, oh, she's not a clone. This is how she's been created, yada, yada, yada. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And to me, like, it felt very much like a Westworld feel. Like the way that they kind of had the tablets, the way the scene felt. Are you watching Westworld at all?
No, I have not had time to get to that one, but I do know of it and what's kind of going on in it. Yeah.
Yeah, and so my theory of how they were creating the clones is, to me, it looked like a super advanced form of like 3D printing that was using biological material. I mean, that whole sphere thing, it was very Westworld. Had the whole butcher shop feel from Westworld, and then with the tablets, I don't know, just like the whole thing just looked like a low budget version of a Westworld scene to me.
Yeah, no, and I thought at first she was some type of cyborg type clone, like Terminator type feeling, flesh and blood on top of metal bodies, because that's what it first looked like when you see the scanner go up and make her. But I was like, wait a second, no. Let me look at that a little more closely. So I put it in slow motion frame by frame, and there's no metal or robotic parts in her creation at all. It's actually bones and flesh that are being scanned in. So she is fully biological. And yeah, your 3D printing idea is a very realistic. That makes sense because 3D printing is all the rage right now. So that could be a very futuristic version of that, which I think is actually very cool. But she is not.
I did too.
She's not robot at all, fully biological being, which plays into why Sarah could fall for her and all that kind of stuff. So I really like that part of it.
Yeah, no, I did too. I thought that was a cool thing, and if it is a nod to Westworld, I thought it was well done. I liked that particularly.
Well, and our show often gives nods to shows of the past and the present, so that's cool.
Yeah, well, so I thought this was interesting that we finally, well, I guess not finally, we didn't really know her name stood for anything, but AVA, AVA, stands for Advanced Variant Automation.
Yeah, that's kind of I've never heard anything like that before, so it's kind of cool.
Yeah, so that was neat. And she's the perfect woman because they created her from the best genes in the world.
Hence the reason why she's perfect to run the Time Bureau. So Rip, I think, planned it all out. He had it all figured out.
Yeah. No, I think you might be onto something there, actually. That's a pretty good theory. I hadn't thought of that angle at all. But that's a good one.
Well, let's get into the fight scene, though, because there was as always, our legends, well, most of the time, 90% of the time, we have really good fight choreography in the scenes. So this was fun when they were in the clone factory and all the Avas were there, and they decided they're not going to let them walk away.
Nope, they definitely aren't. I thought this fight scene was great. It was so much fun because Sarah and Ava, every time they get to have a fight scene together, they always completely kick butt, and I just love watching that. And Ray even got a little bit in on the action.
Yeah, he has been fighting a little bit more lately, but I just love the scene when they go back to back and Sarah says, "Stay close to me. I don't want to lose you in all of this," because
yes.
that could be very easy.
All that had to happen was for one of them to lose a helmet. I'm not going to lie. Mm-hmm. Before she calls him Gary at the very end, when Gary's like trying to psych himself up to punch her, and she's like, "Gary," he's like, "Oh, it is you." I really did think maybe it wasn't her.
Yeah, exactly.
I was like, oh no, now another one doesn't have a helmet. How are we going to tell them apart? But then it didn't happen that way, which I was kind of relieved about.
Well, the other thing that I loved about this fight scene is it totally reminded me of The Matrix and the fight scene with all the Agent Smiths when there was hundreds of them.
Yes.
That's exactly what it was. Even the music was similar. It was very much The Matrix, so that was cool.
That's true. That was very cool.
All right, let's move on to the Darhks, who were kind of the other half of the story going along here.
Yeah, so this got pretty interesting. We kind of start where we have Amaya. She doesn't have her totem. She's in time limbo. And that is what is kind of messing with the 2018 timeline, which was confusing to me at first.
A little bit, yeah.
Right? Because she's out of time, but I think Nora and Damien, because they're only ever traveling through time with their little time stones, I think they have to be somewhere in the timeline. So I think that's what was causing the issue because Nora now has the spirit totem and it's back in the timeline, but it's not in its proper place. So I think that's why it's disappeared from Mari's. I don't know if it's literally disappeared from Mari's neck or if she just doesn't have superpowers anymore or how that really works. But
well, that, and I think because Amaya loses it, and yeah, I mean, it depends on the time loops and all that stuff. So if she loses it and doesn't go back in time to create, like she can't actually pass it on to her daughter, who passes it on to her daughter,
right?
Who's Mari. So I think it's just one of those time ripple effects right now. Amaya doesn't have the totem at the moment, so the timeline is messed up. Her granddaughter forgets it and doesn't have her powers. Yeah.
It just is confusing. It took me thinking about it a little bit to kind of put it together.
And who knows if I even got it straight. Yeah, it was a little bit convoluted for sure.
Sounds pretty good. Yeah. All right. Well, Nate and Wally go to check it out because here's the thing where it starts to get a little weird with Amaya. Immediately, I guess she's been emboldened by the fact that her and Kuasa have been speaking all throughout this season because she's like, well, I'm just gonna go talk to her and I'm gonna go check on her. I gotta go see how she is. And Nate immediately is like, that's a terrible idea. You can't do that.
Yeah.
So this is the first little inkling we kind of get that something's up with Amaya, and she has, for whatever reason, is deciding to completely disregard the timeline.
Yep, and starting to get on my nerves, getting a little annoying there, Amaya.
Yeah, it was just kind of, it did actually feel kind of out of character a little bit. Did it feel out of character for you?
Yeah, it's just because she's starting to focus more on just herself and her family, and yeah, I don't know. It's hard for me to, because she's been okay. Like I've stated a little bit that her stories kind of reminded me of the Hawks a little bit. I like her a lot better than the Hawks for sure, like her character and her acting and her performance, all that kind of stuff. But right now, just the way the story is switching for her, how the whole plot line seems to be revolved around her family and her history, and that's all she cares about. It's just like, you know what? I'm not starting to care as much anymore.
Yeah, it's just getting a little heavy for you.
Oh, it's not heavy. It's not heavy at all.
Well, like
it's
heavy-handed, like with the...
Yeah, and it's just not. It's not the kind of drama that's pulling me in. I'm not that attached to her story to, I guess, feel it as much. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. But
interesting.
So they run into Kuasa in the hospital.
They did, which I was not expecting. That was interesting.
Yeah, and I thought it was funny when they spot her and Wally runs up to grab her using his speed, and it totally took her by surprise. She wasn't prepared for that, which tells me she's never faced a speedster before.
That's a good point. I didn't actually put two and two together, but that makes sense of why she kind of says to him later in the episode, and whatever you are, you have a whatever you are.
Yeah.
I was like, does she not know the word speedster? Does she not know who the Flash is? Like, what's happening?
No.
But I guess not. So that kind of cleared that up, because I thought she was being a little weird about Wally. I was like, why is she not getting this? I mean, it's not the Flash, but it's just like the Flash. Like, why is this surprising to her? But
yeah, like I said, I don't think she's ever faced one, so she has no idea why she doesn't have any knowledge of one. I guess that's just from the time periods she's from. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, they decide that they're going to use Nate as bait. So, I know it rhymes, so I can't help it. So that they can get Amaya's spirit totem back. I'm not sure why they've decided this is a good idea, but it's the only idea that they have, and that's what they're going with, because they don't want Amaya getting involved and messing with stuff. So I thought that was interesting, and I was actually a little bit surprised that Nora just sort of handed it over. Did that surprise you that was that easy?
Yeah, it did for a moment, until I realized that I don't think it is Nora anymore at this point. I think Mallus has almost fully taken over with, you see the physical changes in her and the way she's talking. And then it's at that point that he claims he doesn't even need these trinkets anymore or something like that. So that's why he suddenly just handed it over so easily. And I think for the moment, Nora stated, like, well, Kuasa's been a good soldier for us. She's never failed us. So, yeah, just give her the totem. It's her family's. And that was, I think, just a very small moment of Nora. But, yeah, I'm for some reason, I guess because Mallus is close to breaking out of the time prison, he doesn't need the trinkets anymore. He is getting strong enough.
Because he's so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Well, unfortunately for Nate, that means that Kuasa has what she needs, and now Nate is our biggest threat to the timeline. So, I guess to her timeline, because throughout all of this, the only reason she is on their side is to protect her and Mari's existence. Because if Amaya doesn't have the totem, then her family can never inherit it, which is already causing problems because Mari's in the hospital in the first place. But I think probably the most interesting thing is that she knows Nate is not her grandfather. And so now he is the biggest threat to her existence.
Yeah, could they slap us in the face any harder for we got that in previous episodes. We already had it fully confirmed that Nate isn't the grandfather. So it's like they're slapping us in the face to say, for whoever still hasn't gotten that message yet. It's almost like they were annoyed with feedback, with people still saying, Nate's got to be the grandfather. He loves her so much. And they're retaliating by saying, for the last time, he's not. And
nope, he's
Kuasa
not.
basically is stating it plainly and boldly.
That's true. Yeah. No, well, because I think a couple people were like, well, but he still could be. And no, I mean, he's definitely not. I mean, she alluded to it when she said, I have to get back and marry someone else. And now Kuasa just came straight out and said it. She's like, you are not my grandfather. You are a threat to my very existence. So goodbye.
Yep.
Oh, man.
Which, I mean, since we're on Amaya, my feeling right now, my theory going into the end of this is this will be the end of Amaya this season. She will not be returning for season 4.
Yeah, I think you might be onto something there.
Which I can't remember where I was reading or listening to. I saw a bit of a theory that this could also be the end of Nate because.
No.
Well, because of this story, but also you've brought on Wally, and now they're bringing in Constantine, and it could be a crowded ship, so they might have to move off a couple characters to make room for the new ones. Budgeting reasons and everything. I read that to sign the actor that plays Constantine doesn't come cheaply, so they might have to make a few changes. And this is just rumor and speculation. It's not confirmation. But it's out there, so be prepared, just in case.
What? No, I love his character, and I love that actor. I don't want to lose him.
So do we all, so let's hope not.
I
don't mean to be Debbie Downer, it's just, I just heard it. I'm not the one creating it.
I know. Well, let's hope it's just a rumor and that doesn't turn out to be reality.
And he's useful. He's the historian. He's the one that understands things changing when they change, and we kind of need him, so.
Exactly. Nick Zeno's hysterical. I love him.
Exactly. Amaya, I could do without. She's not necessary on the show. I love that they brought in Zari. I think Zari could totally fill her role fully, and we don't need Amaya anymore. I'm reaching that point now.
I think I'm not far behind you, and if only because I really do love Zari's character as well.
Yeah.
And she's had a better story recently than Amaya's getting. It's not her fault. I love the actress. I mean, she's phenomenal. She does such a great job. But anyway, let's get back to the story. So let's touch a little bit on Nora and how she's been very possessed and looking very Mallus-y. I don't know if that's the best way to describe it, but she's got like black, I don't know, it reminded me of Agent Carter, the black veins all over her face. That was a storyline in Agent Carter. But it's really freaking out Damien Darhk and is stealing his torturing mojo, which leads to some very interesting scenes. Yeah.
Well, before we get into that, this is at the point where I do think Nora is gone. It's fully Mallus taking her over, like I said, possessing her body, because I think what he was doing, the things that he was saying, is too far gone for Nora to be that evil. I don't think she has it in her to be that evil, even though there was the one line she said, was it this episode or last episode, where she said she wants to be part of Mallus or wants to be that evil. I don't know if that was her, so I don't know. I'm not fully sold that Nora is that evil. I think it's Mallus's influence that's making her be that way.
Yeah, I definitely think the influence is playing a lot into that, but she was saying, I don't know if it was last episode or the one right before it, but she was just saying that she has embraced the darkness. Like when she confronted Sara in Mallus's spirit realm while they were both being possessed. I mean, she's embraced it, whereas Sara was willing to still fight it and fight for some form of good. Nora, not so much.
That's a better way to put it, embracing it, yeah.
Yeah, so I definitely think she's embraced it, and I agree with you. I think Mala is more Mallus than Nora, for sure, if any Nora at all.
Yep.
Oh, man. Okay. The Damien Darhk bonding session with Nate. He had one with Ray a couple episodes ago, and now he got one with Nate. It's just, I think it's funny. I think a lot of people are not liking this, but I find it terribly amusing that it's a villainous version of a worried father. It just cracks me up.
Yeah, I find it funny too. It's so plain, matter of fact about everything, and the chemistry between Damien and Nate was great. I mean, I can only imagine how much fun they had doing those scenes together.
I know.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's fun. This is a fun side of Damien, and that's the show having fun with the character and not trying to be too serious about things. It's a good time.
I know. I don't know. I think the chances of him joining Team Legends to save his daughter might be a little stronger than we previously thought.
Every episode is leading towards that for sure. He's got to save his daughter. He was starting to stand against her tonight. I mean, she saw what he was doing when they were faking the torture, and she threw him against the wall. So she or Mallus kind of, I think, is starting to see that. So yeah, we'll have to see. But I also liked in that just before all of that started happening, when Wally and Nate and Kuasa were starting to figure things out, and they told Wally to go. I can't remember what they said to go do, but anyway, he sped off to go do something, and all the papers and everything go flying. It's just situational comedy. It's just a bunch of the papers stick to Nate's face while he's trying to say his lines, and I thought they obviously, for creating the scene, there's a quick gust of wind from a fan or some type of source that blows the papers all around. And they must have just went with that cut because it looked so funny. Like, there's no way they could plan that to happen. It just happened. As he's saying his lines, these papers are actually stuck to his face, and that had me laughing.
I know. I thought that was funny. Well, I think he even curses Wally at one point. He's like, Wally.
Yeah. Just funny little stuff like that.
It was. There was a lot of just little funny scenes, little funny stuff that was happening. It was very good.
But now that we mentioned Wally, something happens here, which I think shocked everybody.
Yes, it did. And because I was not expecting this to happen, but Wally was speeding towards Nora/Mallus, and she steals his, literally steals the Speed Force out of his body and then throws it back against him to use it against him. Yeah. I don't even understand how that's possible.
See, and I'm wondering that. So, because they didn't give us any explanation, but she stole his lightning.
Yeah.
Which is the Speed Force wrapped around him, and then she threw it back at him. So I think, because speedsters have to generate the Speed Force, generate the lightning to run. So I think she was able to just grab that moment of energy around him that he was using to accelerate and throw it at him, which is crazy. But what I also like is that it kind of weakens Wally on the show, because we all been wondering, okay, a speedster, they've already shown that he could be too overpowered for our show. So they've been trying to figure out a way to dial it back and harness it. And one direction they're taking is, well, Wally's inexperienced. It's going to take Sara and the team to kind of teach him a little that he can't always use his speed and run around. But then I thought this was another way, because magic has always beaten out superpowers in DC. Superman's only weakness has been every time he faces magic-based characters. So I think this is very fitting that Wally, as a speedster, can't just run in against a magic-wielding foe, because they can turn it around on him. So it actually works.
I liked it. I was surprised by it. I wasn't expecting it. I didn't fully understand how it worked, but I like your explanation, and I like exactly what you said. I like the point that it weakens him, not in a bad way, but in a we don't have a completely supercharged person kind of way.
Yeah, because there was a YouTube video I was watching that was explaining how Flash is basically the most powerful being in all of comics because of the Speed Force and what he can do with it. He can do things nobody else can, and I should find it. Actually, I'll give full credit to Patty Spivot. She's the one that found it and sent it to me, and I should post it on her Facebook page because it's actually fascinating. Cool. Just a little debate. It's two guys sitting on a couch, and they do it in this big joking manner, but it's them sitting on a couch, and the one guy explains why Flash is too powerful, and it's very fascinating. And then the other guy basically debunks it a little bit. Anyway, I'll post it if I can find it. I'll post it again. And it just ties into this, and I think it's great. Like you were saying, it's not weakening Wally where he's not as strong. It hones him in a little bit, so he's not so overpowered.
Yeah, and I like that. I think it was needed, and I'm actually glad that it worked that way.
Yeah.
Okay, shall we talk about Kuasa's death scene? I think that is next in the order of these scenes. It's kind of bringing us to the end here.
Yeah, and that was a shocking scene. I didn't expect Kuasa to die here. I didn't expect it to be that brutal. I mean, actually ripping the totem right out of her chest, which answers the question, because we all wondered, where is the water totem? Is she part of it? Did she absorb it? Did she eat it? Like, we didn't know. But basically, I think the way I'm looking at it is that in her resurrection, because she was brought back to life from a lake of water, a pond of water, she formed a physical body around the totem.
Yes, something like that. It was just very interesting to see how they did that, because Mallus is able to hone in on the totem fully formed kind of inside of her and rips it out of her chest. And did you notice that it was placed exactly where it would be if she were wearing a necklace? Mm-hmm. And so that sort of confirms all of the theory that they have to wear the totems as a necklace, because we've been saying that for a while.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was pretty fascinating. Although I think your theory is a good theory. I have no idea, like, why, if was formed around it, like, why can Mallus reach in and pull it out? Like, I don't know that I fully get that, but I get that now that it's severed from her, she's dead, because that was what was keeping her resurrected and or alive was the totem.
Yeah. The only chink in my theory that she was formed around it is every time we see her collapse into a pool of water and flow away, there's no stone there. So I don't know what happens to it at that point.
Maybe it was just like a part of her, like an organ. Like, instead of ripping out her heart, they rip out the water totem. It's the same concept, you know?
Yeah, that could be.
That's the only way I was kind of, the only other way to really think about it that I could think of. But I have a question about okay, so once Mallus rips it out, does he absorb it? Because you still see it though in Nora's hand, but it starts turning red. So, or purple, I'm not sure. It was like a reddish purple kind of color.
Yeah, well, that's the totem being influenced by evil forces, so it turns red. Just like how Amaya's totem, when she got it back, and she tried to use it, her eyes turned red at first, because I believe, like we've seen, it takes time for the totems to adjust to whoever's wearing them.
Okay.
Based on whether they're good people at heart or evil people at heart, like we saw with the Earth totem when it, what it did to Blackbeard's girlfriend and all that kind of thing. So I think having the water totem in his hands, that's an evil being. It turned from blue to red, it's being influenced by the evil forces that are wielding at that moment.
Interesting. Okay.
That's what I think.
Well, I think that's a good theory, because I had none. I was just like, what is happening?
Well, the last thing I wanted to say too is that it's obvious to see that Mallus is getting so much stronger. He's almost unstoppable now, but I mean, that's also because our team keeps facing him either alone or in small groups. They have not faced him as a whole team, which they've alluded to needs to happen. But he's getting stronger.
Happen, and it needs to happen with all of the totems, which they don't quite have.
Now they're down 2 total. Now it's 3-2 again. Is that what the score is?
I think they only have water, because Amaya took spirit back. And then Zari has air, Mick has fire, they have earth imprisoned, and they presumably have death imprisoned somewhere, because
or Constantine has it, as you theorized.
Yeah, one of the two. Or, I mean, even if they have it, I mean, Constantine can still come back and wield it. But that's the whole reason in the beginning that Sara wanted to get off the ship, was to get away from the death totem. So I think they still have to have it somewhere.
Right.
under lock and key.
Well, now that we're talking about the totems, there was yet a third smaller story happening on the Waverider.
There was. Amaya was left in charge as captain and tasked Zari with training Mick.
And what fun was that?
This was really quite funny. But before we get to the funny part, I just wanted to say a quick note about her observing Ramadan. I thought that was actually kind of cool. Like, we got to see some of her family traditions, and we got, just to see like what it's like from her culture, like all the family traditions that, she remembers from with her family who she no longer has. It was just something to connect her to her relatives.
Yeah, and it's giving her some depth and fleshing out her character more, which is good because she needs a little bit more of that.
Yeah, so I really enjoyed that. And I think a lot of other people just enjoyed that, it was a different, type of faith or a different type of observance of some, religious practices that got to be recognized. So I thought that was kind of cool to see just a different culture.
Yes, indeed.
All right. So I was horribly amused that Zari was spinning, making the air inside a giant wind tornado because she finally got sick of it.
That was such a funny scene, yeah.
It was so funny. I mean, I just kind of wrote this down because I thought it was interesting. But he's always been more of a chainsaw than a scalpel. Just to kind of go back and use, her little quote from several episodes ago. But he's, bull in a china shop, man.
Pretty much. And she's so great in these training scenes because she has such great expressions. I love Tala Ash's expressions. She's really good at matching them to the situation, whether she's annoyed, she's sarcastic, she's bored, or she wants to be cocky. I think she's hilarious. I love her facial expressions.
I know. Well, I love that she was having to like talk herself down. She was like, okay, no negative thoughts. Like, I can't have it because that's part of the whole thing. She's supposed to fast and, not, give in to negative thoughts or influences, which is very difficult when you're trying to train McRory on an empty stomach.
Yeah. Well, and it's just these moments that like everything that she's doing, her reactions, her talking to herself, all this stuff, it's just making me enjoy her way more than I'm enjoying Amaya, because we've never seen Amaya do anything but flirt with Nate. There's been no other connections with the other characters. There's been nothing like that that's just entertaining and fun to watch. And this is why I am loving Zari so much more, especially when it comes to later in the episode after the training. There's a pretty tough scene that when Kuasa gets killed and all the totems react to it, and everybody that's wearing one kind of feels it. And it turns out that Rory and Zari knew exactly. They knew it. It's like somebody in the Force in Star Wars, that Jedi dies, all the Jedi feel it. You can feel a tremor in the Force. It's that kind of idea. They felt her die, and they exactly knew Kuasa died.
Yeah.
And it allowed them to have this bonding moment, which I really liked because it somehow they work really well together. There's good chemistry between Zari and Mick. That took me by surprise too. I was like, wow, these two are really good on screen together.
Yeah, I enjoy all the scenes they have together, mostly because they're usually very funny. Yeah. But I also like it when they take a turn for the serious, because they both can do like a really good job with just really like sobering their characters very quickly. Mm-hmm. No, like, pun intended. But because of
feeding him salad.
I know. Well, I love that. She's like, eat it. It's good for you, as he pushes it away. Yeah. He did try some of it, I think, by the end of it, but it was good. I liked their bonding as well. I think they could work well together.
Definitely. So. Well, moving from that, one final scene. I'll let you've got a little bit more here to say about it. So what's your thoughts on this last little bit with Amaya?
Okay. So these last scenes kind of close out the Nate and Amaya storyline. Now, I have this first point here because I thought it was rather interesting that they are finally acknowledging that not only should the two of them have never met, they most certainly should never have been together. She's not supposed to be on that ship. I mean, just the fact that she is there on the Waverider is technically a threat to the timeline. And the fact, not even further, the fact that they've met, and then take that even one step further, the fact that they're together and in love with each other is a huge, huge threat to the timeline that we've all been saying since they first introduced this whole romance situation. And she tried to run away from it, and then she voluntarily came back to the ship when Sara begged her to. So I think this is the issue where we're all kind of having with her storyline, is it's been a little up and down and inconsistent, but now that she's back and they've committed to this romantic storyline, they're, I guess, pushing it to I don't know if they're pushing like that angle to the end, but they're definitely pushing Amaya being an anachronism to the end, because she's about to create a giant, huge, big no-no by going and messing with where she dies. Like, because she's supposed to die in 1992.
Okay, so that's where I was confused, because she's from like 1940 something, isn't she?
Correct.
Okay, so she's going to 92, the year that she's supposed to die. So she's going to go save herself so that her daughters and granddaughters can have a better life. Is that kind of what they're trying to write here?
I don't know if she's necessarily trying to save herself, but I think she definitely wants to save them, or at least maybe save Kuasa from a terrible existence, because that's kind of what they've been trying to get at between the scenes with the two of them in this season. She keeps talking about, well, you have the power to change the past, and you keep saying family's important, but you're not doing anything to help me. Kind of deal. This is what Kuasa has been telling her. And so I think it's finally gotten to her, especially when, she died in front of her saying, no, family is the most important thing. And Maya's like, oh my God, family is the most important thing. And not only did I watch her die, I felt her die, because I'm assuming she felt her die as a totem bearer. And so she's like, well, now I have to go and try and save her. And the place where everything goes crazy is in 1992, when the warlords burn down their village, kill Amaya, and then Kuasa's mother flees with Mari and leaves Kuasa behind. She thinks she's dead.
See, I think because I'm losing interest in Amaya, I have not retained all of that info. So that was a good refresher, and hopefully that helps all our listeners too. That makes a little more sense now, but
okay, good.
This is what bugs me about her, though. Like, she's totally going in for selfish reasons and just not thinking everything she's ever learned about being on the time-traveling ship. She's just tossing that all to the wind to go do this. And that last moment of this episode just made me go, oh, okay, I'm kind of done with Amaya. She's just not with it anymore.
Yeah,
I'm not with her anymore.
And I think it was kind of a frustrating bit of writing, because this is going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back on the anachronism Mallus time prison front.
Yeah, I like that.
I mean, it has to be with something that's just like that big, and that no, this is definitely one of those things where we can just see Rip Hunter in the background going, no, this is something you cannot do. Yeah. This is how they broke time in the first place. They went back and interacted with their selves. She's about to do the same thing.
Yeah, and this is the sole reason, just this part of the story, that knocked it down for me, my overall rating. If they had taken her completely out of this episode, I would have loved it so much more.
It was this final point, while I understand why they're doing it this way, it just was too plot devicey.
Yeah.
And obvious.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is it for our points on the main storyline. Let's move into nitpicks. It looks like I may be the only one that has some this episode.
Form of water.
Well, actually, our discussion just now kind of, like I said, I thought it might spark something, and what I just was talking about the closing final scene and the anachronism and that being very predictable and plot devicey, that's my nitpick. Her going back to 1992. So I already talked about it.
We just kind of discussed it, and that was that.
Yeah, exactly. So let's get into yours. I actually have a counter to one of yours, but
Okay,
I'll
good.
let you go ahead and state them.
I mean, my two were kind of small ones, but I think actually the Amaya one at the end is my big one. I'm surprised I forgot to put that in there. So yeah, we'll count that as my big nitpick. I just did not like that. Okay. Writing. But the other two little ones I had was Nate agreeing to be injected with a power dampening drug. I just thought that was so dumb. Like, really, Nate? By a person who's proven to not be trusted, you're just going to let her jab you in the neck while you're already tied to the chair, so you're completely defenseless as your mortal enemies show up to crack a deal with you. Like, I just thought, Nate, you are not being smart here at all, and that part actually really bugged me.
Yeah, I agree. He's not being smart. I mean, I don't have a counter to that at all. I agree with that. It wasn't enough to like truly get under my skin, but yeah, I did think it was him making a bad decision. Yes.
Now the other little one, which you say you have an answer for, is I was just going, huh? When Kuasa just magically shows up on the ship, how does she get on the Waverider? Are they parked somewhere? Aren't they floating up in the time stream? Like, what the heck? How does she just get in? And he's on the bridge. Hey.
They had not left Detroit yet.
Okay, but isn't it usually cloaked? Doesn't she have to open the door? How does she get in?
She turns into water. We've seen her do it before and kind of creep her way very stealthily into the Waverider.
All right, I guess. But I didn't think they were actually landed somewhere for her to get into. I guess that's where I'm coming from.
They had to have been because Wally just speeds off. And he can't go anywhere. So, I mean, when they're in Detroit, he leaves Nate, he speeds off, and then he's talking to Amaya, and then as they're talking, they walk onto the bridge, and whoop, there's Kuasa. So it's like, yeah, no, they were definitely still in Detroit.
Well, the only counter I have for that is we didn't get our usual, hey, there's the Waverider decloaking above a populated city before it lands, so we didn't get that shot.
No, maybe the writers heard you, and
maybe.
I'm just kidding. I don't know.
All right. Well, fairly weak nitpicks for this week, but there you have it. Moving on to quotes of the week. Here we go.
Shape out an eagle.
What won for funny quotes last week?
The winning quote is called Master of the Who?
There isn't exactly a paint-by-numbers spell for locating a spaceship floating through a temporal stream. My business card says Master of the Dark Arts, not Dr. Woody What's-His-Face.
Who?
Exactly.
Who? Good stuff.
Exactly.
So
yeah,
funny.
That was a good one.
All right. What did you find for this week? Before we actually got started, you had your usual 4.
I did.
I could not find 4 serious scenes this week, so I went and found a 5th funny one to add in. So we got 5 funny ones, 3 serious ones. I'll point out which one is mine when we get to it. So what do you have for your first funny moment?
The first funny moment is called Infatuation.
Director Sharp's personnel file has been erased.
Someone deleted it remotely from the Waverider.
Wow, she must have really wanted to go off the radar.
Wait, you think Director Sharp erased her own file? That's crazy.
Yeah, so was putting on a wig and impersonating your boss, Gary.
I didn't actually do it.
Oh, that just made me laugh.
And we all know he does.
Mm-hmm.
All right, what's number 2?
You know, I've got to get some snark in here. H2O, uh-oh.
You're sure you're son Kuasa?
Yeah, just be on the lookout for a badass in a leather outfit or a suspicious puddle of water.
Suspicious puddle of water, because I know exactly what that looks like.
Exactly. Wally's just like, what?
So funny. All right, what is number 3?
Paradise Found.
What kind of world is this?
Paradise?
I'm surrounded by my exes, Gary. This is hell.
Your first hint that Gary kind of likes Ava too.
Yeah.
Or one of them anyway.
There's something there, yeah.
All right, number 4 is the one that I snuck in. What is that one?
Logical fear.
This place is creepy.
How about I wait outside?
How about you calm down?
Is it too late to mention my fear of things covered in sheets?
I like that one. Me and Patty were chuckling away when he said that. Because, yeah, when you're walking into a morgue or anything like that, I would have a fear of things covered in sheets just simply because I've seen enough horror movies where one of them always sits up.
Yep. That's funny. A lot of the Gary stuff was pretty funny.
Pretty good. All right, what's your last one here? This one's a fun one, I think.
Torturous bondage.
Do you get what I was playing at there?
Yes.
Her face. How long has that been a situation?
You know what? Since you're going to die, I might as well tell you. The closer that Mallus gets to escaping his prison, the worse the situation gets. Stop looking. Don't look at me. I'm just gonna. I'm sorry. It's not you. It's me. Torture just doesn't bring me the same joy anymore.
It's okay. You're distracted. I get it. You made a deal with the devil. Now he's come back to claim your little girl. Am I right?
Yes. I mean, I wanted to burn the world down and rebuild it in my image, not lose the person I was doing it for.
Damien, this is deep stuff, man. Let's just keep digging. Let's keep digging. Just do me one favor.
Yes. What?
Can you lose the cattle prod? I mean, I'm gonna die anyway. Let's just make this a safe space.
Safe space.
Safe space.
Safe space.
They are having so much fun in that scene.
I know, like the whole scene. It was a funny scene. Like there is no way around that. That can be a funny scene.
You're allowed to have a funny scene. It doesn't always have to be quotes, for sure.
Oh man, it was good.
All right, moving into serious stuff now.
All right. Well, do you want to announce our winner?
I think this one was a surefire win, no pun intended. Totally pun intended. It had to be Born to Burn.
This totem wasn't meant for me. You have to use it.
Forget it.
You spent your entire life obsessed with fire and heat. What if this is the reason why?
How many times do I have to tell you I'm not a hero? Sarah's a hero. And look what the death totem did to her.
That was the work of Mallus. Most people who've seen what you've seen would have succumbed to darkness, but you didn't. You chose to become a legend. You may try and hide it, Meg, but you're a good man.
What if you're wrong?
There's only one way to find out.
Wielding a totem's bad enough. Now you want me to wear a necklace.
There's no time, Meg.
See? Doesn't work.
Yes, that one, of course, is going to win.
Yeah. I think both won by a landslide.
Cool.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. What is our first scene this week?
Well, playing off of the word revelation, this one is called Revelava.
Well, I guess this is why they declared 2213 a no-fly zone. And Director Sharp didn't want us to find out that she's secretly a robot.
I did not have sex with a robot.
No, you didn't, Sarah. You had sex with a clone.
Here at Advanced Variant Automation, we are working to bring a brighter future. Our cloning program has produced the Ava. Ava is the perfect woman designed to keep us safe and restore order to the chaos.
It makes sense they'd clone Ava. She is the perfect woman.
Oh, calm down, Gary. She's okay.
A little bit funny in there. It's not even that serious a scene. It's just the big revelation of, everything that we've been wondering about with Ava. And I found it kind of neat that it was actually Ava doing the voice for the commercial too.
I know. That was very cool.
She's advertising herself.
That's very funny. Okay. What is our second serious scene?
The second one is Fickle Water.
Plan worked. Free me.
I once thought that losing this totem was the greatest threat to me and my family. But you were in love with my Nanaba. And should she choose to love you in return, me and my sister will never even exist.
This is not the plan.
Plans change.
This is better than the brave and the bold.
For a PhD, you're remarkably gullible.
Oh, Kuasa, you're better than this. Be the woman your grandmother believed you to be.
I'm being the woman she knows me to be. When you kill him, do it slowly.
Do not trust Kuasa.
No, that was a great scene. I was glad you picked that one.
Yeah, simple as that.
Okay, and what is your final scene?
Yeah, my third and final one is called Fire and Air.
Try it. It's good for you. I can't stop thinking about Kuasa. Felt her die.
Oh, me too. Mind you, she did try to kill us a couple times.
But she was a totem bearer and Amaya's granddaughter. And the totems supposedly connect us to something larger.
Yeah, for better or worse.
For better or worse?
Yeah, I just liked the moment with those two together, and that was just a little piece of it.
That was a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Can I have an honorable mention? I know we don't have a clip for it, but I just wanted to say that I really liked the scene between Sara and Ava when she is basically kind of telling her like who she is and that she knows that she's a good person and she's not like these clones. And then it kind of ends with, oh, but by the way, I need you to pretend to be a clone now that you know all this.
Yeah. Yeah, that was early in the episode when they first went to the... What am I saying? When Ava actually caught up to them at the cloning facility.
Yeah, it was just before she dresses up in the suit and tries to pretend to be a clone to lead them out. That was a good one, too.
That was a good one, too. Yeah, I struggled a little bit. There wasn't anything super heavy in this episode, so...
Yeah.
Which is what I usually like to find. I like to find the heavy drama, the tears, and the shock. But
we didn't have a lot of that.
No, we did not.
Well, should we do feedback?
Let's do some feedback.
Point twin powers, activate!
All right. This is an email from ArcPhase. Greetings, Wonder Twins. This week's episode was not as intense as the previous week with Possessed Sara, but just as exciting. Mari finally gets her totem back, bringing our legends to 5 totems, to Mallus to 1. I think he means Amaya. He says Mari often, though. In the end, Kuasa does what she does for her family and ends up dying a second time. From the looks of it, the water totem seems to have been corrupted with it in her hand.
Yep.
Yeah. It was funny seeing the torture, quote unquote, that Damien Darhk was inflicting on Nate. I wonder what will happen to him for the pretend torture. Will Mallus try to do something to him? Maybe have him killed just like Kuasa?
Yeah, because I think he kind of got outed that he's no longer with them there, so we'll have to see what, if anything, comes of that.
Yeah, I think that will be interesting to see what comes out of that.
Yeah.
But he continues, Ava was a clone with a lot more personality, too. Perhaps they will explain this on the next episode of why Rip took Ava from the future and made her an agent of the Bureau. The clones were also robotic and seemed so soulless. Very true.
I think only in the beginning. I'm wondering if there's more to it, if clones get programmed or implanted with memories or something to kind of individualize them. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if we're going to get more on that. We'll have to see. I mean, there's only 2 episodes left. Will they spend time on Ava's story again? I highly doubt it.
I don't know. Yeah, you're probably right. Ugh. All right, well, he finishes. We're reaching the climax to everything, and with 2 episodes left, I wonder if these events will continue to the next season or be resolved in this season. Time will tell all. From ArcBase.
Case in point.
Yep.
Cool. Well, thanks, ArcFace. Next up, we got an email from Karina Lucas, and she says, Hey, guys. I have to admit I was expecting much more from this episode. Thought we were going to get answers about Ava, but all I have is more questions. Is she really a clone, or is she the original human that's being cloned? Ooh,
Yeah.
good thought, Karina.
That's where I was leaning to. I was like, is she
Possibly.
truly a clone or is she patient zero?
But they did say they cloned her from all the genetics of all the amazing women around the world, so maybe they compiled somebody somehow. I don't know. Yeah.
I don't know.
Again.
Yeah.
Anyway, she continues, what does Rip have to do with it? When will she and Sarah get back together? So many questions. Yes, and I bet you we will not get them all answered this season. I emitted a loud sound with the Orphan Black shoutout, and what we learned with the Clone Club is that the clones are very much humans with their own personality, and the Ava clones look like robots. That's why I think our Ava is the human being cloned. But why? Why is she so important, and why did Rip recruit her? Jess McCallan was amazing in this episode, and I'm so glad the writers gave her the opportunity to shine. I'm sure we never imagined that by the end of the season she would become one of our favorite characters. Yeah, exactly. It's amazing the turnaround. We were saying that last podcast. It's amazing the turnaround they've given for her, and that's both the writers and her performance. So, yeah. Please keep Gary for next season. He's too amazing not to be around. Yeah, he's grown on us too, I think.
He's so funny. Oh, I love Gary.
Yeah, but I don't want him too much. I think having him just off and on is the best way. Yeah, I think every episode would be too much.
Mm-hmm.
Now that Damien realized that Nora / Mallus is out of control, will he help the Legends? It looks like his concern about the well-being of his daughter will make him choose sides, and I guess he'll choose to save Nora. That's exactly what we're thinking. You can see it happening. I know it's a little bit predictable, but it's okay. I like kind of what they're doing with it. It's the way the story has to go. Will Amaya risk the timeline and change her future? If so, how will she know that things really change for the better? 2 more episodes to go. Can they announce the renewal already? Well, I hopefully gave you a little bit of hope towards that. I give this episode $8 I'd pay to see Gary cosplay as Ava. Till next week, Karina. That would be funny.
That was a fantastic rating. I loved it. A lot of good points in there.
Yes, she's very on par. She's been in tune with me for quite a while this season, so I like it. I have not seen Orphan Black, so I did not pick up on any shout out there. Do you know what she was talking about?
I know that I think they're called the Clone Club or something like that, but I also did not watch Orphan Black. So
awesome. Well, thank you, Karina. Last up, we got a voicemail from our green butterfly. Here she is.
Hi, Commissioner Harley. This is your eye-in-the-sky green butterfly. That was an amazing twist. I didn't see that coming. I thought maybe Ava's secret was there was some sort of strange, timey-wimey family connection between her and Sarah. But the fact that she's a clone, I definitely didn't see that coming. And even though Sarah ended their relationship, I was glad to see Ava and Sarah fight together and work together in this episode. A good captain has to put personal matters and personal pain aside if you're going to save history and save the world from the Darhks. Another amazing twist? Some redemption for Kuasa. I would have never guessed that. These writers are good. At first I thought that Heatwave was disrespecting Zari and her religious beliefs, but as the episode went on, I started to think that maybe he just doesn't get it. Like it was just going over his head, because he's having entirely too much fun trying to cook things with his fire totem. Of course, that's what he would do with his totem. It is so Mick. Note to self. Remind me never to sneak up on Sarah, make Sarah mad, or anything of that nature, because this girl's knife skills are on point. This episode gets 8 out of 10. Wait, I think I see Ava. No, wait, she's over there. Oh, there she is. What? Have a super week. Green butterfly out.
I think we should, every time we're stuck coming up with an intro skit, we should contact Justina to help us with that. She always has funny little ending skits.
That's true. She does. It's kind of a nice bookend to the podcast.
Yeah, that's kind of fun. I just made that connection now. We started off, she closes it for us. Now I do enjoy, I like that she likes Mick and the whole cooking his food stuff. That's just pretty funny. It just, makes sense. But we forgot about that point with Sarah, and when they went to see the Stepford wife parents, when she pulled the knife, that actually made me jump. I did not expect that move. That was just, jump scare real quick.
I did. I was actually surprised the woman lived at that point.
Yeah, that's true. But no,
good
stuff, Green Butterfly. We love having you on here. That's 8 out of 10. Not perfect for you.
No, I like this episode more than a lot of people. Apparently.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she didn't have anything negative to say about us. I'm kind of curious what knocked it down 2 points for her, because she's been giving like near perfect ratings for a while.
I know.
Interesting. Well, thank you everybody for your feedback as always. And for the rest of you out there, we know there's hundreds of you. Get on board with this. This is how you do it, because it's a lot of fun. We want to hear from you.
If you would like to be part of the show, you can send in feedback to tomorrowslegends@gmail.com, spelled with 1 R. You can also reach us on Twitter at tomorrowslegends, also with 1 R. Join our Facebook page at facebook.com/groups/tomorrowslegends and become part of the community.
Well, that does it for us for this week yet again. We're down to 2, Harley. You've probably looked ahead to see what's coming, like previews or titles, right?
Yes.
Do you have an inkling? Is it giving things away for you? You know what's kind of coming?
No, I don't. I really, really don't.
Good.
Other than my theory with Amaya. Although I will tell you, I absolutely love the name of next week's episode.
Okay.
Even more than I loved the name of this week's episode.
I don't want to know it in case it gives anything away, but...
It doesn't, but... Well, I don't know. Maybe it does.
Yeah,
I don't know.
But
You'll
still.
see next week.
Yeah, I'll see next week. But I'm telling you, though, 2 weeks to go. This is just racing to the end too fast. What are we going to do for the summer, Harley? Or for the spring, even?
Catch up on all the other TV we're not watching? I don't know.
That's true. Yep, I'm behind a lot of shows.
Me too.
All right, Legendaires, until next week, this is The Flash, signing off.
And this is Harley Quinn. I'm out.
Tomorrow's Legends is not affiliated with CBS, Warner Brothers, or the CW. We're a fan-made podcast for entertainment purposes only and are part of the Cybercast Network. Find our show in Apple Podcasts, where you can leave a rating and review. We'd love that. You can also find us on Google Play Music, Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, and Stitcher. Please share the show, and thanks for listening.